Greater Sandton and beyond. Get ready for the Sandton Times Hour
with your host,
Alexander.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, this is the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8 and also available on all good digital audio platforms. I'm Alexander Leibner and this is Season 5 of the Sandton Times Hour. It's edition 142. It's week 4 of 2024. And a Happy New Year one last time, and I would like to wish you all the very best for the months ahead, and may it be a year of more for all. Especially all those good things. That's what we want. 2020 more. If you'd like to get in touch, if you'd like to send through your questions, your comments, or your feedback, you can do so as you did last year. You can email editor@sandtontimes.co.za or connect on social media @Sandton Times, or visit the website www.sandtontimes.co.za. And what a record quarter the end of last year was for the Sandton Times. So thank you to all of those who logged on, who visited, and who make it a regular read. It's much appreciated. And if you're listening live on Mix 93.8 right now and not on a podcast at a later stage, well, you can use the WhatsApp line. It's open on 084 822 0938. That's 084 822 0938. And it's always good to hear from you. So if I haven't heard from you as the new year starts, do so. Please send through a message. It'd be good to hear from you. Even a voice note. It's always nice to hear some familiar voices, and especially the regulars who always send through messages. Thank you. And I hope you've had a good start to a new year. A very special welcome to everyone listening for the very first time as well. If this is the first time that you've tuned in, I see that we had some record audiences listening to the podcast over December, which was really encouraging. And I think December, a lot of people went on road trips. They had some time, so they obviously dived into the archives on the podcast and had a chance to listen to a lot of the editions, so thank you for that. And if you're listening in Johannesburg and Pretoria, across South Africa or anywhere else in the world, if it's online or on air, wherever you are, welcome back, and I'm happy to report that all is well in Sandton land. And it is a new year, and we're back with some fresh new energy after a bit of rest. And I do hope you enjoyed some of the replays over the past month, right here on Mix 93.8. And obviously, if you subscribe to the podcast platform as well, you've got a whole archive that you had a chance to listen to at any time and wherever you were. Welcome back to Vincenzo. Hey, good to see you again, man. We haven't spoken that much yet, but you're back behind the mixing desk. And thank you for being back for another year. Glad this has been working out quite well. And you look very rested. Do you have a good break? Yes? CC. Okay, well, that's good. I certainly had a most memorable December break, I must tell you. And the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be sharing some of those experiences with you in a bit of a two-part, and I say part because I'm going to say Mondeling, which is a very good Afrikaans word, especially if you are an international listener. Mondeling is like a show and tell. It's like an oral presentation at school. So generally when you come back from school holidays, you would have a Mondeling about your trip to the sea, or your trip overseas, or your trip to wherever you went. Maybe you went to the bush, maybe you stayed at home, but there was always a Mondeling. So this is my Mondeling for the next 2 weeks. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting Mondeling. I headed out to Miami and Orlando in Florida in the United States. I had never been to either of those before, and I'd never been to the United States. So this was really and truly a complete new adventure. I really do hope that you kick back with me over the next hour or so, and we do a bit of armchair traveling together. I know most people are back at the office, back at work, kids are back at school, but even though the year's just started and the holiday's a distant memory, here's a chance to maybe do a bit of theatre of the mind, and let's travel together on a bit of a walk down memory lane to Miami and the Bahamas for what I'm going to be calling my Miami Mondeling. And next week we'll do Orlando, which includes Disney World, Universal Studios, Kennedy Space Center, and so much more. And I really do hope it inspires you to maybe look at the year ahead and go, you know what? Maybe we should do this at the end of the year. Here's a bucket list dream destination. You know, the kids want to do Disney World, or you've thought of doing Universal Studios, or maybe you're fascinated with space, or maybe you've wanted to do a cruise all your life and you thought maybe this is the opportunity. Let's dream a bit together. Let's do it. So coming up on this week's show, we're heading to Miami in the United States, and we're going to be chatting about the christening of the Norwegian Viva, which is the latest Prima-class cruise ship owned by Norwegian Cruise Line, which I'm going to be telling you about. Then I'll take you on a tour of the ship itself, and we head to the Bahamas, and we spend an afternoon swimming with pigs. You heard correctly, and I'm going to tell you the full story. And then I get a chance to chat to one of the senior leadership at NCL, and I'll be sharing that interview with you, and all the details are coming up. And finally, we take a tour of Miami to get a feel for the city, its people, and why you might want to add this destination to your travel dream list for 2024. So whatever seat you're in right now, I encourage you to put on your seatbelts, and let's go on a journey across the Atlantic Ocean to a city in the United States oozing with heat, even in winter, and a very distinctive Latino energy that makes it a super sexy place to go to. And who better to transition us into the right mood than Miami royalty herself? She's an 8-time Grammy Award winner, Gloria Estefan. This is the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8.
Promote your brand. Advertise your business.
Our audience could be your next client. Contact the Sandton Times today.
The latest news.
The biggest names.
The best destinations.
The hottest entertainment. This is the Sandton Times Hour.
This is the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8 and available on all good digital audio platforms. And that was Gloria Estefan and You'll Be Mine. And if you've just joined us, welcome to the first of a fresh new edition of the Sandton Times Hour for 2024. And it's a bit of a two-part vacation Mondeling, an oral of what happened over the holidays. And in this case, it's a Miami Mondeling for this week, as I headed to the United States for the christening of the Norwegian Viva, which is a brand new cruise ship that had set sail towards the end of last year. And before we get into the next hour, let me place a brief disclaimer up front that much of what I'm about to share with you are my personal impressions and by no means a definitive guide to anything. But if you've ever had the United States or Florida, or in this case, Miami, on your list of places you've always wanted to go to, well, hopefully, I hope this inspires you to maybe consider a trip maybe at the end of the year or whenever you decide to take your next holiday. And it just gives you a bit of a taste, a bit of a feel. And let's let our imaginations wander as we go through the next hour. And that being said, I think the best part about traveling really is the opportunity to see what South Africa is getting right, because often we miss that. I feel so many people go, oh, you're going overseas, it's so much better, blah, blah, blah. It's not always. And it isn't as fantastic sometimes as people think. And also, look at what we're doing wrong and what we could be doing better. And in the same breath, are places like the United States getting right, and what are they getting wrong, and what maybe isn't as fantastic as we thought it was, and what is really something that we might want to consider. So that's always the great thing about taking a trip somewhere in the world. So the first hot tip, if I can mention that, is that if you do decide to make a trip to Miami, please make it a direct flight, because I ended up flying somewhere in the region of 30 hours. So from Cape Town to London Heathrow, and then from there to Miami, which is an incredibly long time to be sitting in an economy class seat, in this case on British Airways. And interesting experience, though, in terms of landing in London Heathrow, which has a great sort of duty-free section. I mean, there's lots going on there, all the sort of super shops. And I mean, with the pound-rand exchange at the moment, it's a bit bitterly cruel in terms of doing any shopping. But one thing that I found quite amusing is that I have one of those cards, those credit cards that's linked to one of these lounge benefits. And so you get to use certain lounges in certain countries whenever you get the chance, which is great because these lounge accesses cost an absolute fortune. I managed to get into one of the lounges, and there was my first realization in terms of what South Africa has to offer. I mean, if you've ever had a chance to go into one of South Africa's lounges, and I'm particularly thinking about the Slow Lounge, which we have at our airports. I mean, it's like chalk and cheese. I mean, we have the most incredible lounge setup at a fraction of the price. I mean, you've got the most wonderful food, coffees, shower facilities, bathrooms. I mean, the most beautiful stuff. Here at this London Heathrow lounge, I mean, I've never seen such manky seating in my life. It looked like a couch that somebody had sat in for their entire life watching TV. That thing had been so worn out. It needed a do-over so badly. And then if you wanted to take a shower, it would have costed 500 Rand to take a 15-minute shower. I thought they were joking. I mean, I couldn't believe this wasn't included in the actual access price to this lounge. So $500 for a 15-minute shower. And then if you wanted to get changed in the actual bathrooms, the toilet cubicle was so tiny. I mean, it was smaller than a telephone booth, that you literally had to sort of lift your suitcase to open and close the door and then kind of do a bit of a yoga move to try and get in and out. And I just thought, wow, you know what? We are, in some instances, we live in the lap of luxury when it comes to some of the travel facilities we have at some of our airports. So kudos to some of these places. Anyway, arrive in Miami after a very long trip, and that was another great realization as to kind of what things cost in the world. If you wanted to get a luggage trolley to kind of put your luggage on at the airport and push it to your Uber or your taxi or whatever your connection is, 200 Rand. 200 Rand for a luggage trolley at the airport, mind you. I thought, well, you know what? These suitcases are actually not that heavy anymore. I think I'm just going to pull these or carry these or do whatever, but I'm not paying 200 Rand for a luggage trolley. And then you got Uber in the United States where it all started. And one thing that I found quite amusing was that the cars only have a license plate on the back, so not in the front. So when you're calling an Uber and you're looking at the license plate number and you want to know, well, which is my Uber? How do I identify it? Well, you kind of have to always wait for the Uber to kind of almost pass you to see what the license plate number is, which I thought was a bit strange. Get to the hotel, which was quite a nice hotel, the night before the christening, so you kind of get there in a good time, just in case there's any delays with flights, etc. And that's when I got my first education on dining in the United States, because I wasn't aware of the service charge that they charge when you go have something to eat in a restaurant specifically. And then obviously, of course, that the value added tax is not necessarily calculated on the menu. So when you look at the menu, you've got a price and you go, okay, well, I'm paying X amount. And then when you get the bill, well, it's X plus the tax plus a service charge. So before you know it, you've paid quite a bit more than what you're expecting to pay when it comes to dining in the United States. Anyway, the next morning, it was time to get onto the Norwegian Viva, but I took a little bit of a walk around the block to go grab a coffee somewhere and maybe a SIM card and just to get a bit of a feel for Miami. And it was really interesting how organized and how clean and how I found quite disciplined that particular neighborhood was. And it was right there close to the cruise terminals. And I mean, as I say, it might not be representative of the whole of Miami, but I must say I had a very interesting walk around the city. Felt very safe, very energized, and like I said, very organized. And I got to meet a whole bunch of interesting select guests and media who were invited from around the world, including a couple of South Africans as well, who were invited to be part of this christening. And we headed off to the cruise terminal for Norwegian Cruise Lines, which is, I mean, it's huge. It's like an airport terminal. And Miami is sort of the cruise capital of the world. So it is just the most impressive thing to go through. And it is very much like boarding a plane. You've got the security checks, and obviously they scan the baggage and all those sort of things, and then you get your ticket, and then you head on to the ship. And then obviously it's the big exercise of trying to find your room. And it is a brand new spanking ship. So it has got the latest technology, the latest design, the latest layout. I mean, the room, which was a balcony room, was very spacious, well thought through. It had a beautiful design. I was not left wanting, I must say. It was absolutely fabulous. And to give you a bit of an overview of the ship, the Norwegian Viva, it takes about 3,099 guests and has a crew of 1,506 people. It has two major accommodation options. So there's one, which is general rooms, which is broken up into suites, balcony suites, balcony rooms, ocean view rooms, inside rooms, and studio rooms. And then two, which they call the Haven, which is like a hidden space which sits on the top part of the ship and features very luxurious rooms. It has a 24-hour butler service, concierge service, and a private sun deck and bar. And I had a chance to tour that as well. Didn't really stay there, but toured it. And it's for people who like to have sort of a quiet space, a space to relax, space where you're not part of the hustle and bustle, but you also have a chance to obviously use the general facilities. And then when you've had enough, you can sort of retire back to your haven, your private space. Let's take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more.
The best of talk and music in 1 hour. This is the Sandton Times Hour. The best of Sandton and beyond.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8, and I'm chatting about attending the christening of a cruise ship in Miami, and I'm taking you along for this journey. So, it's quite an interesting thing to be part of a cruise ship christening, because this is really like the moment that this cruise ship comes to life. The process involves many traditions, which intend to sort of invite good luck. And the shipping industry seems to have a myriad of these long-standing traditions. And one of those traditions that many people know is that breaking of the sacrificial bottle of champagne over the bow as the ship is named and launched. That did happen, and it's quite formalized now. I mean, I think back in the days, they sort of had somebody who had to like be hauled up with a crane, and they had to sort of throw the bottle against the bow and hope it breaks. Now they've got sort of almost like a swing, which is activated with a button. It's quite something, but it dates back thousands of years. I think the Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Romans, they all had their sort of ways of calling upon the gods of the time to protect all those who got onto the ship and evoking favors from the monarch of the seas, which were people like Poseidon in the Greek mythology, or Neptune in the Roman mythology. And there was also the use of wine, which was drunk and poured over the ship. And in this case, we didn't have any of that, but we did have a priest and a rabbi who gave a blessing over the Norwegian Viva during the formal proceedings. And I mean, there were a couple of hundred, if not 1,000 people in this terminal, massive stage set up. There were speeches by the president, the CEO, the chairman of Norwegian Cruise Line, and obviously we had the blessing part, and we also had a godfather, which I'll get into just now. But every nation obviously has its own superstitions and its own ways of blessing the ship, but obviously they're all seeking good luck and safe travels for all those on board, and it's quite an interesting and exciting and emotional, special moment when a ship comes alive after a christening. And like I mentioned, it's also become very customary to have an iconic woman or a man who is part of the christening of a new cruise ship. And at the launch ceremony, they become the godmother or the godfather of that ship. And in this case, it was a multi-award winning singer, Luis Fonsi. You probably know him for his smash hit Despacito, which became a big hit around the world over the last couple of years. But there were a series of reasons why Luis was selected as the godfather, including the fact that he is based in Florida, and the Norwegian Viva is ported out of San Juan in Puerto Rico, which is one of the destinations, and it's also Luis's hometown. So there were a couple of good reasons why they decided to get him in and have him be the godfather of the ship. Then there was a christening dinner after that, with a very special christening dinner menu at Hudson's, which is a stunning restaurant. It has a 270-degree view of the ocean, and that was followed by a super exclusive concert. And when I say super exclusive, I think we were probably a few hundred people or so in the room with Luis Fonsi performing live, and what a memorable experience that was. And to give you maybe a quick taste of what the Norwegian Viva sort of had to offer, it's quite something. They've got roughly 13 dining options, so some are included, some are the part of the usual package, and then there's some specialty dining, which means that there's a bit of a surcharge that you have to pay. Then I'd say they have about 18 plus spots where you can grab a drink, and there's loads of entertainment, including there's a speedway or a go-kart track on top of the ship. So if you want to drive a go-kart whilst the ship is moving in the ocean, they've got that. Then there's multiple water slides as well. Then there's also the Beetlejuice musical, which is currently being staged as part of the sort of musical performance. There's a comedy club. There's live musical performances all over the ship at any given stage. And there's also dry slides that take you from the top deck all the way down to the bottom deck. And that is hair-raising. Then there's a gym. There's infinity pools all over. And then the most gorgeous spa with a thermal lounge, multiple saunas, and treatment rooms. And this is something that you really want to make time to use. It is just absolutely gorgeous. It is really big. A couple of South Africans working there as well, so you might hear the odd Afrikaans phrase. And then you can also do some shopping on the ship, and there's also a Starbucks that also is at an additional cost, but it's quite a treat if you can squeeze that in. Well, there's only one way to wrap up this segment, and that is with the man himself, the godfather of Norwegian Viva, Luis Fonsi, as we take a quick break and more on Miami right after this.
Online, on air,
Anywhere, anytime.
this is the Sandton Times Hour.
Back for more?
The Sandton Times Hour continues.
Welcome to the second half of the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8. I'm Alexander Leibner, and that was Luis Fonsi and Demi Lovato with Échame la culpa, or Blame Me, translated into English. If you caught something intriguing during the show but missed the details, don't worry. Head over to the sandtontimes.co.za and explore the comprehensive show notes, or as comprehensive as possible, for a breakdown of all the highlights from this week's edition with further reading and links. Also, don't forget to connect with the Sandton Times on social media at Sandton Times, and feel free to join the conversation. Whether it's a tweet, a WhatsApp message, a DM, or a voice note, choose your preferred mode of engagement, and feel free to also use hashtag Sandton Times Hour. Well, our first week back behind the microphone for 2024, and I'm taking you on an armchair trip to Miami as I recount some of the encounters of my December. And I headed to the United States for a series of experiences. And interesting enough, I came across this Flight Center report. And they released some data for 2023. It was called the Year in Travel Report. And this report unveiled a list of top international destinations where South Africans ventured in 2023. Mauritius secured the top spot, and that was followed by Dubai, Thailand, Zanzibar, and yes, the United States. And in addition to this, on the cruise front, the average age of cruise customers, according to this Flight Center report, was 51 and a half years old. Then South Africans favored balcony rooms and interior rooms, with most cruises departing from Cape Town and Durban. And the top global cruise ports visited included Rome, Barcelona, Venice, and Southampton. So speaking about cruising and traveling to the United States, I had a chance to connect with Kevin Bubolz, Vice President and Managing Director of Continental Europe, Middle East and Africa at Norwegian Cruise Line, who joined me for the christening of the Norwegian Viva, and we had a chance to have a quick chat. I asked him how he was feeling at this moment now that the Norwegian Viva was on its way.
Yeah, it's always a moment of pride, of course. This is ship number 19 for us in our fleet now. I'm with the company actually more than 18 years now, so I've seen this grow over the years. And a day like yesterday when you welcome a new member to the fleet officially, that's a special day for us, of course.
How do you feel this strategy towards bigger, more exciting, more glamorous ships is working for Norwegian Cruise Line? I mean, you've already got the next big cruise already announced for 2025 that's coming online.
You're absolutely right about more exciting and new things as well, and we will always evolve as a brand, but we're not necessarily just going for bigger. So this ship class here actually is a little smaller than the last one we bought. This has about 3,000 passengers, and the last one's, the breakaway class, was about 4,000 passengers. So we are trying to build a flexible fleet of ships that have the right size for where we go in the world. In some areas you want to have a bigger ship, in some areas you want to have a smaller ship. So we have, out of the 19 ships that we have, ships of all sizes basically. And this is our new beautiful class, but it was a little smaller than the last one we built.
Now, we're in Miami at the moment. We're here for the launch, and we're taking a bit of a cruise into the Bahamas. It's an established port. It's an established market. I think it's probably the leading cruise space when it comes to cruising in the world. But NCL is starting to make its way into different other parts of the world, including Africa and South Africa. You had your inaugural cruise for the Norwegian Jade. You're coming back again with the Norwegian Dawn. What are some of the thinking and some of the thoughts in terms of your expansion and your penetration of these new markets? And what is the demand that's driving that?
So we are a truly global cruise line, and if you look at some of our competitors from the North American market, they are very much focused on the Caribbean. For us, actually only 30% of our itineraries are in the Caribbean, so that's a bit surprising to some, but we are actually more global than we are a Caribbean-based cruise line. So that means we are now in every continent, around 400 ports in the world that we go to with our ships, and we are continuously developing new destinations. So South Africa is one of the new destinations post-COVID that we've now started to come to, and it's something that our guests really like to see, that we're now having these beautiful itineraries from Mauritius to Cape Town along the Garden Route basically as well. So we are really excited about developing new itineraries around the world on all continents.
So South Africa's coming on board in terms of the cruise business? I mean, we've had the Cape Town Cruise Terminal, which is doing a very good job, I think, at this point. We've just had the Nelson Mandela Cruise Terminal open in Durban. How important is it, this investment into cruise infrastructure, for a cruise line to say, we're prepared to come to the party as well? Because I suppose without the infrastructure, it's very difficult to run a cruise itinerary.
Yeah, that's definitely key, because in the end we have people who are on their holiday. They spend their precious little holiday time that they have in the year. We want to provide them the best possible experience. So if you have a good professional infrastructure locally, then we can do that, right? So we always need to partner with the communities on land where we go to. Having great infrastructure like the terminals you mentioned in Cape Town and in Durban is a very good help for us and makes us want to come even more, right?
Where do you feel that the NCL product fits into the kaleidoscope of cruise offerings that there are in the world? I mean, if somebody's never been on a cruise, or they've only been on one or two cruises, and they've kind of got a bit of a feel for it, where would you position the NCL product in all of that?
So NCL is meant to be a contemporary cruise product, so like in the middle, but on the top of that segment. So we are not aiming to be playing the low price game, so you will often not find us to be the cheapest in the market, but we are a quality cruise line. So as you can see around us here on this ship, we are investing in the quality of service and the quality of food, and everything that we do, you will find it at the high end of quality. And so the value that guests are getting on an NCL cruise is incredible, and that's what more and more people are realizing now, especially compared to a land-based vacation. Look at what hotels cost on land sometimes, look at what you can get here in the cruise package, and we are definitely aiming to be the quality cruise line.
A lot of media on this cruise are talking about the boom in cruising, the return to cruising after a very uncertain period. It feels like we've kind of got smooth sailing ahead. How are you perceiving that change in the market, or that readapting of the market in terms of coming back onto cruising and kind of filling up ships? Are you seeing that demand?
Yeah, so we are now back. Our benchmark was always the year 2019 before the pandemic, and we have surpassed the numbers of 2019 now in 2022, and now in 2023 we will again. So we are on a healthy track. For 2024, we are actually in the best booked ahead position for the cruises next year that we've ever been in our company history. We are always looking at December 31st when we turn the year, how much of next year do we have sold already, and it will be around about 65-66% that we will have sold already on that day of the next year's cruises, which is a very high number already to be done. So you see the demand is very strong for cruises, and that's from all over the world, including South Africa. The last couple of weeks especially, we've seen strong demand from South Africa. So I think the value proposition that cruises bring, more and more people find out about that and are interested in trying this for a holiday.
In terms of this product, are you finding that there's a huge demand for ever better and ever more luxurious spaces? I mean, we've just had a tour of the Haven, which is your sort of premium offering on board a normal NCL ship in terms of classes. Are you seeing that there's a huge demand for that kind of experience and that kind of living on board of a ship?
Yeah, so I mean, the Haven is a special product. It's our ship inside the ship concept, right? Where you have an area that is only accessible to those who live there with a key card. Only those that live in the suites up there can go to that. It has its own restaurant, own sun deck and everything. So this is something that when I joined 18 years ago, we were sometimes having to upgrade people into the suites because we weren't selling the suites before. Now it's the other way around. The ships sell from the top down. The suites are the first things to be sold out typically. So there is a strong demand for that. That's why you've seen the Haven is also growing a lot. We have more suites now in that complex as before. But really the demand for quality experiences is strong throughout everything we have on the ship, down to the inside cabins. People now, especially post the pandemic, want to have a certainty when they do something with their precious time and with their money that it's a great experience, that they are getting a great value. So that's why we are dedicated to be a quality product throughout all the areas that we offer, throughout all the categories that we offer.
Moving into 2024, what is the outlook for you, the outlook for the company? Where are you going? What are the next big steps?
So for 2024, we have very good demand. We are in a record booked position already for our cruises next year. So we are looking forward to a successful year from a business perspective. We will have a couple of new destinations around the world, as every year basically. We will have the first full year of the Viva in service. And then we are preparing for the next ship that's coming. That will be the Norwegian Aqua that launches in 2025. She's already on sale now. Cruises are being sold early typically. So throughout the next year, we will be speaking a lot about Norwegian Aqua and the new things she has to offer as well. And that will be another exciting chapter in our company.
That was Kevin Bubolz, Vice President and Managing Director of Continental Europe, Middle East and Africa at Norwegian Cruise Line, chatting to me on board the Norwegian Viva somewhere in the Bahamas last year.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
So as you've probably gathered, there was more to do and see than there was actual time to do any of it. But one activity I wanted to touch on was swimming with pigs in the Bahamas. And this sounds as ridiculous as it possibly is. But as part of the entire cruise experience, most cruise ships, especially if they have long itineraries or long schedules, they offer excursions onto the shore. So you might find that you are spending some time where you're just on the ocean, cruising around. And there's days where you actually get to go off the ship and you get to explore wherever it is that the ship has stopped. Now, one of these places is NCL's very own island, which is called the Great Stirrup Cay. And it is just something else. I mean, you can just imagine, if you remember Enya's Caribbean Blue, it's these turquoise waters, beautiful white beaches, and bars, restaurants, all kinds of things, all kinds of water sports, and of course, also some excursions. So one of my South African media colleagues says to me on the ship, "What are you doing for the excursion?" I said, "Well, I haven't really thought about it. Maybe, there's jet skiing and there's all kinds of things." She said, "Well, why don't you do the swimming with the pigs?" I said, "What do you mean swimming with pigs? Where?" She said, "No, there's an excursion where you can go swim with pigs in the Bahamas." And I've heard of this. I think I even saw a video clip of this somewhere online. And I thought, no, you got to be kidding me. Really? So went on this adventure of trying to discover where we can do this. And really, you can do this. And the story goes, and there's a couple of different stories, and I don't know if there's an official story on how these pigs got there. But supposedly pirates or sailors or something along those lines left these pigs as part of their kitchen inventory at the time on these islands in the Bahamas, thinking that they would come back at some point and have a feast. And in some instances, they didn't come back. The pigs were left on these islands, and the pigs survived. They found stuff to do, they found stuff to eat, and they've been there ever since, and they're very tame. So off we went to go and swim with the pigs in the Bahamas. So you get off the ship, you register, you choose your excursion, and they take you on a speedboat, and you kind of head off for a good 5 or 10 minute speedboat trip to these islands where these pigs live, and they live on a beach. If they're not napping, they're swimming, and if they're not swimming, they're napping. And they kind of run around in this space, and it's quite bizarre. It's a very bizarre experience because you don't expect to see pigs swimming in the ocean, but they are. So how it works is that you then kind of get given apples because they enjoy eating apples. And for your safety, you kind of put them onto a bit of the sort of a longish wooden stick, just in case the pig mistakes your hand for the apple. So that's sorted out. And then literally you sort of dive into the ocean, and the pigs come swimming around, and you feed them apples. And there you are on a Thursday afternoon, feeding pigs in the Bahamas apples on a stick. And to add even more novelty to this entire experience, the guys who sort of look after the pigs when the tourists aren't visiting, they have sort of a sound system going on there, and they were playing YMCA. And I thought, how insane is this? Here we are feeding apples to pigs in the Bahamas on a Thursday afternoon, listening to the Village People. But what an experience it is. And if you ever get a chance to do it, do it. It is quite something. And there is nothing that makes you quite as happy as that experience, because it is just really so unusual and so extreme. Well, let's take a quick break. It's time to head back to the mainland, Miami, and there's probably no better song to set the tone than this.
Connect with the Sandton Times. Email editor@sandtontimes.co.za. Follow the Sandton Times on social media.
At Sandton Times.
This is the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8, and what better way to ease into the final minutes of this week's special Miami Mondeling than Miami by Will Smith, who I believe is also a resident of the city, along with Lionel Messi, Jeff Bezos, Jennifer Lopez, Pitbull, and the list goes on. They've actually got a special part of Miami, which is like a private island where all the rich and famous stay, and you can't just get on there. You need to be invited. And I believe the houses there go for something like $20 or $40 million. And then you've got all the yachts parked there. I mean, it is just very lavish and very bougie, but it's quite something, and it adds something to the whole fabric of Miami. And, so often I've heard people saying, Durban being nicknamed the Miami of South Africa, which I think is a bit of an insult to Miami, given the current state of Durban. But there's honestly no reason why Durban couldn't be the Miami of South Africa. It really could. I mean, the similarities, the culture, the position, the weather, etc., it's all there. But Miami is just run so well. They really understand what they've got. It's so organized, so neat. Everything just works, and it really is just geared towards bringing investors, international tourists. It is just, it's a slick operation. Durban has all the potential. It just needs to be steered in the right direction if we're going to be using ship examples during this hour. Now, Miami is known for its stunning beaches, its vibrant nightlife, and it obviously has a very distinctive skyline as well. Even if you've never been there, and this is I found quite an interesting thing about the United States, is that it always feels like you have been there. You've probably heard of places like Ocean Drive, South Beach, Miami, and then there's also the 800 Art Deco buildings. I think it's the largest collection of Art Deco architecture in the world, which is really something to see. And if you've watched movies like Miami Vice, and you've obviously watched The Birdcage, Bad Boys, and there's probably another 100 other movies, you do get that feeling that you've been to the United States before, because you know the brands, you know some of the names, you know the states, you know the cities, and even if you've never been there, it's quite amazing how that US culture has been exported to the rest of the world, to the extent that you know the place even though you've never been there. And this happened quite a bit during this trip. My impression of Miami is that it was very clean, as I mentioned. It's very organized, and it's also well run. I mean, there seems to be a sense of law and order. I mean, the most bizarre thing is when you see people stopping at traffic lights that work, roads that are in mint condition, and they stop behind the line and people can cross, and everyone knows their place, knows the rules, and they stick to the rules, and they have a sense of responsibility. And that tends to come with rights. So they're intertwined, rights and responsibility. And I thought that I really got a good sense of that in Miami. And there's quite a bit to see, depending on what you enjoy and what you'd like to do. I think a good 3 to 5 days there should give you a good overview of the city. And I must be honest, I've never heard as much Spanish as I had in Miami. And if you want to try and speak some Spanish, well, that's the place to try it, because in some instances, some people don't even speak English. So I found I was using some English in some instances, but for the most of it, I was trying to Google Translate Spanish sentences and Spanish words to try and get around, especially at hotels, restaurants, in an Uber or using public transport. This became quite an important thing, because there's many people who've come to Miami from places like Cuba, Venezuela, Colombia, the Caribbean itself, and they've settled in Miami, and they've obviously looked for either a different political system, or they've looked for economic opportunities, and they've really added this incredible flavor and quite a international, multicultural feel to this US city. One of the things I took a chance to do is have lunch at Gianni's restaurant at the Villa Casa Casuarina. It's situated at 1116 Ocean Drive, Miami Beach. And Gianni offers a delicious blend of Italian Mediterranean food and has a very nice wine selection as well. And it's served in a one-of-a-kind historic setting, which is Gianni Versace's former mansion. And if you've watched the series or the special on Netflix, you'll know exactly where this is and what it looks like. And the villa was originally built in 1930 by the architect, author, and philanthropist Alden Freeman. And in 1992, the villa was purchased by the famous Italian fashion designer Gianni Versace, and he lived there from 1992 until his death on the 15th of July 1997 when he was shot dead in front of the house by Andrew Cunanan. And today the villa operates as a boutique hotel, a restaurant, and also an event venue, and managed to secure a table there next to the pool, which is best known for its incredible design. It's known as the 1,000 Mosaic Pool, and it's adorned with thousands of 24-karat gold tiles, which were imported from Italy. It's a very distinctive pool. I mean, needless to say, lunch wasn't all that cheap. As with most things in the United States, which I found, and I believe this is a post-COVID thing, so I thought it was just expensive because we're South African and we're having to convert rands into dollars. But supposedly the States has become very expensive even for people in the United States. Prices just absolutely went through the roof. We always keep talking about the cost of living crisis. And it's very evident in the United States, and especially the people I sort of spoke to and engaged with. But it is a bucket list experience. If you're into sort of history, into dining, if you enjoy Versace, that's something to do and something to see. Another great dining spot was in Little Havana, which is sort of this very Latin heart of Miami. It's an entire strip where they've got Latin American shops, they've got Latin American restaurants, and there was a cafe with a walk-up window selling Cuban coffee, and I had a chance to visit this. It's called Sandwich de Miami, and they specialize in gourmet handcrafted Cuban sandwiches. Absolutely divine. Once again, you've got someone behind the counter who speaks broken English, and you know you're getting the authentic thing. Really great sandwiches, really great coffee. And if you're into Latin American food, this is a definite must visit. Little Havana, tons of different restaurants. And I come back to my example about Durban, where once again, some incredible, different, diverse cultural dining in Durban. And I think, wouldn't it be amazing if we had our very own Little Havana in Durban, where you could safely and comfortably walk up and down. I mean, this street must be a couple of kilometers, and dip and taste and feel and experience and listen to some of the incredible culture that South Africa has to serve up. Well, I think that's all we have time for this week on the Sandton Times Hour on Mix 93.8. Thank you for joining me for my Miami Mondeling. And as always, available as a podcast on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or any other leading digital audio platform. If you want to get in touch, you can email edit@sandtontimes.co.za, and I'll try my best to get back to you on email if you do send one. You can connect on social media at Sandton Times on Threads, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You pick your platform, and you can do that. Or you can visit the website at sandtontimes.co.za. And feel free to send through your questions, your comments, your feedback. All of that is very much welcome. Vincenzo, it's good to have you back again. And here's to another incredible year for all of us. And it's great to be taking our Sandton Times Hour nation with us on this trip. Thank you to the Sandton Times team as well as everyone at Mix 93.8. I think let's play out with a track for the Bahama Pigs. It's the Village People with YMCA. Thank you for listening. Welcome back. And let's do it all again next week.